Spartacus, how one slave became Rome's worst nightmare. Spartacus was never meant to be a legend. He was born far from Rome, likely in Thrace, a harsh land of mountains and warriors on the fringes of the Greek world, a place that produced tough fighters but stood little chance against the expanding power of the Roman Republic. Some ancient sources suggest he once served as a soldier, possibly even in the Roman auxiliary forces before desertion, rebellion, or simple bad luck led to his capture. Whatever the truth, his fate became the same, as millions swallowed by Rome's endless wars. He was enslaved. Stripped of freedom, identity, and dignity, Spartacus was sold into one of the cruelest institutions in the ancient world, a gladiator school. In Capua, south of Rome, he was trained not just to fight, but to die for spectacle. Gladiators were celebrities and victims at the same time, admired for their strength, yet treated as property, forced to battle in arenas where the crowd's entertainment depended on blood. But Spartacus was no ordinary captive. He was strong, yes, but also intelligent, observant, and unwilling to accept the idea that his life's purpose was to be butchered for applause. In 73 BCE, inside the walls of the gladiator school, owned by Lentulus Batiatus, a desperate plan took shape. Spartacus and around 70 fellow gladiators, Gauls, Thracians, Germans, men from conquered lands across the empire, decided they would rather risk a brutal death than wait for one in the arena. Their initial breakout was almost absurdly humble. They seized kitchen knives and cooking spits, fighting their way past guards before capturing wagons loaded with real weapons meant for gladiatorial games. Armed at last, they fled toward Mount Vesuvius, the looming volcano near Naples, and made camp on its slopes. At first, Rome barely noticed. Slave uprisings happened from time to time, and they were usually crushed quickly. A small militia force was sent to deal with the fugitives, and that was Rome's first mistake. Spartacus did not fight like a cornered criminal. He thought like a commander. When Roman troops tried to trap his group on the mountain by blocking the main path down, Spartacus improvised. Using vines, his men crafted crude ropes, climbed down a sheer cliff the Romans thought impassable, and launched a surprise attack from the rear. The militia was routed. Suddenly, this wasn't just a jailbreak. It was a rebellion. Word spread like wildfire across the countryside. Slaves fled farms, mines, and households to join Spartacus. Shepherds, rural laborers, and the desperately poor rallied to his banner. What began as 70 gladiators soon swelled into thousands. Spartacus organized them into units, trained them, armed them with captured gear, and enforced discipline. This wasn't a mob, it was becoming an army. Rome sent more forces, and again they underestimated him. Roman commanders treated the uprising as a policing action, not a war, and paid dearly for it. Spartacus used mobility, surprise, and knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver heavier Roman formations. He avoided battles he couldn't win and struck hard where the enemy was weak. Consular armies, forces led by Rome's highest elected officials, were defeated, their camps overrun, their prestige shattered. For the Roman elite, this was unthinkable humiliation. The republic that had crushed Carthage and dominated the Mediterranean was being beaten by escaped slaves. But Spartacus's movement was more than a military problem. It was a social nightmare. Rome's economy ran on slavery. Every victory Spartacus won sent a terrifying message. The people in chains were capable of organizing, fighting, and winning. As his army grew, estimates suggest it may have reached 60,000 to 100,000 people, though not all were trained fighters. There were women, children, the elderly. Entire communities on the move, following the hope of freedom. Spartacus now faced a decision that would define his legacy. One path led north toward the Alps, where his followers might disperse to their homelands and escape Roman control. Some ancient writers say this was his original intention, but unity in such a diverse force was fragile. Many wanted revenge. Many wanted plunder. Italy, rich and vulnerable, lay open before them. The rebellion turned south again, and with that choice, escape transformed into open war against Rome itself. Estates were looted, symbols of Roman wealth destroyed, and supplies redistributed among the rebels. To the oppressed, Spartacus was becoming a liberator. To Rome's ruling class, he was the embodiment of chaos, a world turned upside down, slaves acting as masters, discipline replaced with terror. Panic spread through the Senate. Finally, they entrusted the crisis to Marcus Licinius Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome, a figure driven by ambition and a burning desire for military glory. Crassus took the threat seriously. He rebuilt shattered legions, imposed harsh discipline, and revived decimation, an ancient punishment where 1 in 10 soldiers was executed to enforce obedience. His message was clear. Failure was deadlier than the enemy. Crassus avoided the mistakes of earlier commanders. He shadowed Spartacus, cut off supply lines, and tried to pin the rebel army in southern Italy. Spartacus, still seeking a way out, aimed for Sicily, hoping to cross the strait and ignite another massive slave revolt on the island, where memories of past uprisings still lingered. He struck a deal with pirates to ferry his forces across. But they betrayed him, taking payment and disappearing. Trapped at the toe of Italy, Spartacus found himself cornered. Crassus built an enormous system of trenches and fortifications across the peninsula, an attempt to cage the rebellion and starve it into submission. It was a feat of engineering and desperation. Yet even now, Spartacus refused to surrender to fate. In a daring winter assault, his forces broke through part of the Roman lines and escaped, proving once again that Rome's grip was not unbreakable. But the net was tightening. Reinforcements under Pompey were returning from Spain, and another army approached from the east. Spartacus's window was closing. In 71 BCE, the final confrontation came. Ancient accounts say Spartacus killed his own horse before the battle, declaring he would either win many fine horses from the enemy or have no need of one at all. He fought in the thick of combat, trying to reach Crassus himself, cutting down soldiers in a last furious stand. We don't know exactly how he died. His body was never conclusively identified, lost among tens of thousands of fallen rebels. In death, as in life, he slipped beyond Rome's control. The aftermath was meant to erase hope. Around 6,000 captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way, the road from Capua to Rome. Mile after mile of crosses lined the highway, bodies left to decay as a warning, carved in flesh. This is what happens to those who rise. Rome had won. The rebellion was over. Slavery remained. And yet, something had changed. Spartacus had forced the most powerful state in the known world to confront its own vulnerability. For 2 years, he had turned farmers into soldiers, fugitives into an army, and an empire's certainty into fear. He proved that even those at the very bottom of society could challenge the might of Rome. Over centuries, his story refused to die. To some, he was a villain, a bringer of chaos. To others, he became a symbol of resistance, a man who chose freedom over survival, who stood against impossible odds and made the masters of the world tremble. He did not destroy Rome. He did not end slavery. But legends are not measured only by victory. They are measured by courage, by defiance, and by the fire they ignite in the human imagination. Spartacus began as a nameless slave in chains, forced to fight for the amusement of others. He ended as a myth that outlived the republic that feared him, a reminder echoing through history that even the mightiest empires can be shaken by those who refuse to kneel.